I've been a Pixel user for years, and one constant I've noticed all this time is that, well, a lot of people really hate Pixel phones. There's nothing else I own in my life that actually inspires people to stop what they're doing and tell me how stupid I am for owning it. Most of the time, I just ignore the Pixel haters, but today, I'm not going to. Today, I'm going to listen to what they have to say and give a response. Some of these people are clearly true Pixel haters, while others are just saying some pretty typical Pixel criticisms. But let's start with tech reviewer Sam Beckman, who made a video called "Do Not Buy the Pixel 10 Pro."
In comparison to phones with matte rails, these glossy side rails just make the phone feel not only more slippery, but just plain worse in the hand. And so purely from a design standpoint, this is not a phone you should buy.
Okay, so I agree with Sam about the glossy rails on the Pixel 10 Pro. I definitely wish Google just used matte rails on all its phones. I've called this out in many of my own videos, so I'm right there with Sam. But the idea that he says this is a phone you should not buy based on just this, on glossy rails, that's wild. So in this next clip, he talks about the Pixel 10 Pro's display. He admits that it's brighter than last year's model and even says that it's no slouch. But then he says this.
Had Google opted to add a more tangible improvement like an anti-reflective coating, then this might have been a different conversation. But alas, at least when it comes to buying this phone, the display is not a reason to get it.
So this is a bizarre thing to say. Telling people not to buy a phone because it doesn't have something other phones have is fine. But almost no other Android phones have an anti-reflective coating on the display. And I know what Sam is subtly referring to here too, which is the Galaxy S25 Ultra. That phone has a special glass called Gorilla Armor 2, which is very good at rejecting glare. Obviously, I wish all Android phones had this glass, but the Gorilla Armor line has only ever appeared on Galaxy Ultra phones, which heavily suggests that Samsung and Corning have an exclusivity deal. So it's not like Google had a choice here. Also, the Galaxy S25 Ultra costs literally $300 more than the Pixel 10 Pro, so this is not really a justifiable reason to tell people not to buy it. By Sam's logic, literally no other phone is worth buying.
For the first time ever, Google decided to give the base Pixel phone a telephoto lens. And sure, on paper, it's not as good as the one on the 10 Pro, and they also downgraded both the main and ultra-wide lenses on the base Pixel 10 too. But I'm here to tell you, after using that phone for a month, and now this phone for a month, I literally do not notice a difference between the cameras at all.
So this is yet another completely wild claim. I don't know what phone Sam had been using for these multiple months, but the camera systems are very different on the Pixel 10 when compared to the Pixel 10 Pro. Like, not only is the quality different, but the offered features are different. The Pixel 10 Pro supports 50 megapixel portrait shots. The selfie camera has a much wider field of view and a better sensor. The Pro also supports macro focus, 4K 60 video shooting on all 4 lenses, access to professional controls. I mean, the list goes on and on. I go over all this in this video up here. But how did Sam use these phones for as long as he did without noticing these differences?
Can I be honest with you guys for a sec? I'm honestly wondering whether this should be my last Pixel phone review for an extended period of time. Like, I do not like providing negative coverage on anything, let alone smartphones, but Pixel phones have just been trending further and further away from what I value in a phone that it's hard for my videos covering them not to come across as overly critical.
This right here makes it clear that Sam isn't really trustworthy for reviews like these. In this one video, I've noticed multiple instances where he was blatantly putting his thumb on the scale, so to speak, and now he's openly admitting that he simply doesn't like Pixel phones and doesn't think he should even bother reviewing them. If he's doing that for Pixels, what else is he doing that for? Like, I know that my channel is very biased towards Pixel coverage. I use a Pixel in my day-to-day life. I love the Pixel ecosystem, and so yeah, my channel is going to be mostly about Pixels. But I'm also comfortable calling out the problems I have with Pixels along with the things I love about them. I'm also comfortable doing the same thing with other products from other brands. I wouldn't just stop talking about a specific brand because I don't like it. If a brand or product is relevant to the conversation or the story that I'm trying to tell, then I'll talk about it and give it the treatment it deserves. To just be like, I don't like this, so I'm not going to talk about it. It's just a really weird thing to say on a tech channel. Anyway, let's move on to a different video. This one is from Dion Media, and he mostly has a lot of great things to say about the Pixel. But there's one criticism that jumped out at me.
Now, to be clear, specs on paper aren't everything, but headroom in performance does matter. Why? Longevity. Google promised up to 7 years of software updates for the Pixel 10 Pro, which is great. But for the 10 Pro to run these new features and updates well 3, 4, 5+ years from now, you need performance headroom. And when compared to the competition, the Pixel 10 Pro simply has much less of that compared to the iPhone as well as Galaxy phones.
So the core of this argument is that the Pixel 10 Pro's chipset is so weak that Dion is worried it won't be enough to stand the test of time when compared to other phones. However, I disagree with this. The other two phones Dion is using here, the iPhone 16 Pro and the Galaxy S25, both have chipsets with more power than anyone knows what to do with. Even if you were to really push those chips to the absolute limit, you'd still be only utilizing a fraction of their full power. This is because the mobile operating systems don't have any way to really harness all that performance headroom, as Dion calls it. And the form factor of smartphones prevents them from being able to go hog wild with performance without literally melting. So the real question is not does the Pixel 10 Pro have enough headroom to last X number of years, but why does anyone need all the headroom that comes with those other phones? So let me put it this way. If you buy a car and the dealer tells you that it can go 1,000 miles per hour, is that really going to affect your purchasing decision? If the dealer shows you another car that only goes 250 miles per hour, are you going to say that that car isn't as good as the other one? Assuming you're not a maniac, you're never ever going to go over 100 miles per hour. So, why do these theoretical speeds mean anything to you? Some might respond to that by saying, well, I'd rather have it than not have it. And that's fine. I can't fault that logic. But the idea that Tensor could run out of performance headroom is not a good take because it has plenty of headroom for the real world uses you'll put it through over the next 7 years. If you don't believe me, just ask someone who's still using a Pixel 6, which still works just fine with the original Tensor chip and is even still getting updates. It will get Android 17 later this year, so yeah. Plenty of headroom. Let's move away from YouTube videos and go to this article from Make Use Of titled, I will never buy a Google Pixel for these 4 reasons. The writer's first reason is that Pixels have been plagued by reliability issues. This is accurate, and Google's reluctance to publicly talk about the Pixel 4a and Pixel 6a exploding batteries is not a great look. Thankfully, we haven't seen too many issues like this since the Pixel 6a, so hopefully Google has moved on. But I agree with this writer that Google has done a terrible job handling the reliability problems it has had in the past. The second claim on this list is that if Google is going to charge $799 for the Pixel 10, it needs to be able to do everything that a Galaxy S25 or iPhone 17 can do, considering they're the same price. This is a very common anti-Pixel argument I hear all the time, and I've always disagreed with it because it doesn't hold water. The Galaxy S25 is operating on literally 4-year-old camera hardware. Shouldn't that mean Samsung should be charging less than the Pixel? The iPhone 17 doesn't have a telephoto lens, so shouldn't it be cheaper than a Pixel 2? The problem with this anti-Pixel argument is that it only ever applies to the processor in Pixels and not anything else. The iPhone, the Galaxy, and the Pixel are all the same price because they all offer different things that some people value more than what the other phones offer. That's it. That's the difference. The third thing on this list is that Pixel exclusive features rarely stay exclusive. I don't really understand this one as there are so many Pixel exclusive features that have always been exclusive and probably always will be. Besides, I don't really understand why it's a bad thing that Google lets other Android phones do the things Pixels can do. Would this writer rather it be that Pixels got all the good stuff and no one else got anything? That doesn't seem like something they should want. And the final thing on this list is that Pixel cameras are no longer the undisputed best. Photography is subjective, so I can understand why someone would like photos from a different phone. But the way the writer worded this is just weird. Pixel cameras are no longer the undisputed best. So they're admitting that they were the undisputed best, but now are just good? And that's the number one reason they would never buy a Pixel? Because the photos are just good? That is a very, very strange reason not to buy a particular phone. The last thing I want to talk about here is actually a comment from one of my own videos. This person makes the argument I've already talked about, which is that if they pay $800 for a phone, they expect premium everything. They even say, why would I purchase what is essentially a $600 phone for $200 more? They then talk about laptops and how you have certain expectations at certain price points. I'm really glad that they brought up laptops because I have a one-word answer to give in response to this. MacBooks. MacBooks are notably lacking in several areas when considering their prices. A brand new 14-inch M5 MacBook Pro starts at $1,600 and comes with a measly 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'm a Windows user, and I can't even remember the last time I had a laptop with less than 32 gigs of RAM. But has that stopped people from buying MacBooks? It most certainly has not. I see MacBooks everywhere, and people seem very happy with them. The problem this commenter has is that because they think the Pixel is deficient, they can't possibly imagine why anyone wouldn't agree with them. They even say at the end here that Pixel fans discount this anti-consumer behavior. But that's just the thing. A company releasing a product that you don't want is not anti-consumer behavior. Google isn't lying to buyers about Pixels, just like Apple isn't lying to buyers about MacBooks. Neither company is pulling a bait and switch or artificially bricking devices after you've bought them. Both Apple and Google are just making products that some people like and think are worth the money, and other people don't. And that's ultimately what all this boils down to. Pixels aren't for everyone. Some people love them, like me. Other people don't love them. Both scenarios are perfectly fine. What isn't fine is when someone tries to convince you that you shouldn't like a thing because they don't like it. It's one thing to helpfully explain to someone your reasoning for not liking a thing, but no one wants to be told that they shouldn't like what they like. Imagine if I went around yelling at people in an ice cream shop for not buying the flavor I bought. If I did that, I wouldn't be being helpful. I'd just be being a jerk. Let people enjoy the things they like. Anyway, that's enough time focusing on anti-Pixel sentiment. If you've enjoyed this, why not like and subscribe so you can hear from me again in the future? If you want to watch me talk more about some of these topics, I highly suggest this video here, where I talk about why I sincerely hope Google never goes back to using Snapdragon processors. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts on this video. I'll see you all down in the comments.